Today, we come to this holy place and time, ready to invoke the divine, to make space for the sacred, to co-create community once again. This, too, is a choice. You cannot, you may not be coerced into relationship with the holy or with one another. I invite you. I ask you to join us. I respect it if you will not, today or ever. More sacred than any other individual need is choice. The right to know oneself, the right to know what you are ready for, what you need, to stretch when you can, to pause when you will, to know your body, your mind, your spirit better than anyone else, and ultimately, to be trusted with the responsibility of your own living. Welcome. To Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church, I'm Bradley, and I'm your service leader for the day. If you're with us on the internet, or if you're with us sitting in the chairs around me, we are one community united in our commitment to each other and our commitment to live out our principles in the world. As we begin today, I want to remind you to silence your cell phones and to be mindful of the variety of interaction levels preferred by people in our community here, indicated by red, yellow, and green wristbands. Raise your hand if this sounds familiar to you. We work together as a church to transform ourselves, our community, and our world by sharing love, pursuing justice, and seeking wonder. We've said this many times. I have a feeling, and feel free to disagree with me, that we spend too much of our time as a church transforming ourselves and not enough time transforming our community and our world. We don't spend enough time going outside to create the world that should be. Last week, however, we did something amazing. We did something that had an impact, and we didn't do it here. We did it in the nation's capital. And today we're going to talk about it. Today is a special follow-up after the Poor People and Low-Wage Workers Assembly and Moral March on Washington and to the polls. For those who need a reminder, last week, our Social Justice Committee helped about 30 people get on a bus at 12:15 a.m. to then drive all the way to Washington, D.C. to stand in solidarity with 140 million people in our country who are poor and low income. That's 43% of our population. After 5 hours, we then got back on that bus and drove all the way back. These 30 people sacrificed their weekend for something important, and I think we should give them a round of applause for sacrificing time to try and change the world. I was afraid that there'd just be a couple hundred people there at the foot of the Capitol, and we'd make some noise, but it wasn't going to be huge. There were about 10,000 that day, and millions watching on Facebook, according to them. It was amazing. The seven-step agenda of the movement can be read in the insert in your bulletin, and if you want to learn more, you can at poorpeoplescampaign.org. For our service today, we will hear from those who went. First from Bob, then Sarah, then John, then Emily, then Tristan, and finally Noel. As we light this chalice, we light this chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to honor those who face adversity every day because of a system that is designed not for them, to reaffirm our historic pledge to seek that justice which transcends mere legality, and to share that love which is ultimately beyond even our cherished reason, that love which unites us. We welcome you, old friends and new, young and old. You are an essential part of our celebration today. Whether today is your first or your thousandth Sunday with us, we are stronger because of your presence. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are, you are welcome here. To support our service, to honor Pride Month, and to soothe our souls, we also welcome today a special musical guest, Roxanne Mcdaniel and the band, The Big Bad Buzz. Roxanne is a transgender singer-songwriter. She attended the ETSU Bluegrass program along with her bandmates, Reva Meir, who plays the fiddle, and Keegan Lucky Smith, who plays the banjo and bouzouki. The band's sound combines elements of country, bluegrass, Celtic, pop, and rock. She writes a lot of songs about hardships and struggles. Her sense of humor on stage puts her audience at ease with her personable demeanor and tongue-in-cheek comments. It's clear that the Big Bad Buzz has a great time making music together and sharing the joy with their listeners. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say, first and foremost, thank you for having us. I'm a little nervous up here today, and I'm not really sure why. I guess it's a bit of an unusual circumstance for me. I'm not really much of a churchgoer typically, so I hope you'll please overlook my awkwardness. The first song that I would like to do ties in a little bit with it ties in a lot with the current state of affairs in this country. There's a lot of talk these days about what constitutes a quote-unquote real woman. Our society likes to say that a real woman should talk a certain way, or think a certain way, or look or behave a certain way. But my belief is that a real woman is whoever she needs to be. And this is a song celebrating that autonomy, which is sorely lacking in some aspects of our society. This is called Real Woman. They say a real woman doesn't walk like you, doesn't talk like you. They say a real woman doesn't stand so steep, doesn't sound so deep like I do. And maybe it's true what they say, and I'm a little bit strange. But I am here to tell you, I don't really care what they say. They're never gonna change me, 'cause I'm a real woman too. They say a real woman should be meek and mild, she should raise your child. They say a real woman does her hair and nails, doesn't raise no hell like I do. And maybe it's true what they say, and I'm a little bit strange. But I am here to tell you, I don't really care what they say. They're never gonna change me, 'cause I'm a real woman too. Well, everybody's got lots of opinions and they're bringing me down. All the businessmen and deacons done ran me right out of my hometown. Well, they talk a lot of trash about things that they don't understand. And they try to tell me I'm just another kind of man. They say a real woman doesn't walk like you, doesn't talk like you. They say a real woman doesn't stand so steep, doesn't sound so deep like I do. And maybe it's true what they say, and I'm a little bit strange. But I am here to tell you, I don't really care what they say. They're never gonna change me, 'cause I'm a real woman too. No, I don't care what they say. They're never gonna change me, 'cause I'm a real woman too. Well, I reckon you all must have liked it. I've got another song, and this is a
more general song about, the struggle. So many of us have experienced the struggle. It comes in quite a few varieties and flavors. But it sort of ties in with the theme of today's service. I can relate a little bit to some of what these posters back here behind me are talking about. In 2017, I got married to my wife. She is a British citizen. She resides in England, and I'm here. And we've been married for going on, 5 years. And in that 5 years, we've never been allowed to live together because we were both working poor. We didn't have the income to meet the requirements one way or the other, so we were stuck stranded on 2 separate continents, being forced to only see each other through brief visitations back and forth. I get to see her, some years I only get to see her at Christmas. This year I'm going to be very fortunate to be able to go there for my birthday and see her as well as Christmas. So it's a real treat that I get to see my wife more than once in a year. This song's called The Watershed. I'm gonna try to get this little thing in tune. That ain't quite it. There we go. That sounds about right. So, this next song isn't for me. This next song is for other people. Because of an experience that I grew up with, and I would like for the people who come after me to not have to grow up with it. I grew up in a very, very hyper-conservative town. To give you an idea of what the mindset of the place was, if you walked down the main street in town, there were blood-stained crosses nailed to every single utility pole. I was the first and only openly transgender person in the entire community whenever I came out back around 2011 or 2012. And the reason that I'm here today is because I had to flee my hometown under threat of death. It became so dangerous for me. I was receiving so many threats of violence that I was no longer able to leave my house and go out in public unattended. I had to have someone with me. And this song is for that experience of being a queer youth growing up in an area that doesn't accept you and in some cases is openly hostile to you. And this song is called Slow Down. Oh, before I do this, I need to just acknowledge these fine folks that are up here with me. Keegan Lucky Smith, who plays banjo and bouzouki. He's let's give him a hand. And to my left here on the fiddle, Riva Mara. These two make it a whole lot easier, I'll tell you. So here we go. This song is called Slow Down. Some careless rumor has kept me sleeping one night. I heard the whispers from the stairs. If we face the jury, will my heart still scream denial? Not superstitious, just devil may care. See redemption in Thank you all so much.
Come to this community with all that you are. Your joys and your concerns are welcome here. We share our moments of joy and sorrows with us through using these candle cards, if you are with us in person, or by emailing Reverend Tiffany at minister@hvuuc.org with the words candle card in the subject line. Please make sure to indicate whether or not you would like the card to be read aloud in the service, which is still being broadcast publicly on YouTube. I have one thing to say. Candle of joy for Brian, who is home from open heart surgery and his week-long hospital stay. He is feeling rough, but making excellent progress. The Koleski household is so immensely grateful to this church family for the show of love and care. Thank you. We will sing Loving Kindness next, which will be led by our musicians, with words printed in your order of service. Hopefully, I was told that there are words in your order of service if you forget the lyrics. If you want a candle to be lit for yourself or a loved one or a situation close to your heart, I will invite you to make that request by standing or by raising your hand when we sing Loving Kindness, which will happen in just a moment. And then I will acknowledge each of you with a motion of my hand, and then you can sit down or lower your hand after I acknowledge you. And we light our first candle for you who are not in the building, but are ever in our hearts and minds.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be well.
And we light a final candle for all that remains unspoken in our hearts and minds. Our reading this morning are the biblical Beatitudes, which were chosen by the leader of the Poor People's Campaign, Reverend Barber. He ties his rationale behind the campaign to Christianity. Jesus was the champion of the poor and the outcast. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. We begin our report with Bob. Bob is co-chair of the Social Justice Committee.
Good morning. Sometime in late February, the household conversation ended up on the Poor People's Campaign and the planned Moral March on Washington. We were aware of the campaign for a number of years, but the March on Washington was a moment of specific opportunity. We talked with other members of the Social Justice Committee, with our friends at the United Religious Initiatives Cooperation Circle, and the head of the Langston Center, who spoke here in January. I researched what other buses were being organized from Tennessee. Everyone thought this was a great idea, and no one was offering to lead the organizing. Noel and I have been sacred activists since about 2014, when we were participants in the Great March for Climate Action. It was an 8.5-month march from Long Beach, California to the White House. We were involved and arrested in the 7-day Democracy Spring action on the U.S. Capitol in 2016, the largest single event number of arrests in history. Over 1,000 of us were arrested in 7 days. And we returned to D.C. in 2018 to demonstrate and be arrested with Jane Fonda at her weekly Fire Drill Fridays, demanding action on climate action. But these were matters that we had been studying and actively involved in: democracy, or a lack thereof, the climate crisis and such, for a number of years. Now, understanding, getting up close and personal with poverty in the United States and the systematic oppression of our citizens felt beyond my knowledge base, my ability to articulate, and certainly outside of my comfort zone. But the strength of the Social Justice Committee and others, particularly my beloved, raised my courage. Then Noel said, "I signed you up as the bus captain. We need to get 40 people together. We're going to Washington." Like many things in our partnership, one of us sometimes needs to get a little love nudge from the other. Thus started a 3.5-month journey of commitment, joy, frustration, and uncertainty, ending with us stepping on that bus at Pinnacle at midnight last Saturday. The excitement of being in something larger than oneself can be so inspiring and captivating. It is so energizing to allow one's heart to lead one into and through uncertainty. Thus it was for me. Uncertainty of my role, uncertainty of my responsibility, of my contribution. So I had no choice but to allow the Spirit to guide me, to be myself and to be in service. I learned a lot in D.C. of the pain, humiliation, and suffering of my fellow brothers and sisters and the children of this country. We had 5 hours of stories of the dark underbelly of humanity in this country. This country, the loudest, the proudest, the richest, and in the minds of so many, the best country in the world. But when I look through the eyes of the Sermon on the Mount and the actual acts of Jesus, rather than the white man created myth of him, I see a country not living up to its declared values, potential, and certainly not to its promise. The minority has always ruled this country. But we're now have reached a point in this country's evolution, our conscious evolution, that it's become simply pathetic in our lack of concern and care for our fellow man, woman, and child. We're at a breaking point. We're going to either turn towards love or away from love. This is what I thought about all day while we were in D.C. and I was listening to the stories. It is what is calling me to step further into my discomfort, to be in heart-led service to our marginalized, poor, and low-wealth brothers and sisters. I want to thank everyone who made this possible with your time, your treasure, your talent, and your prayers. I look forward to exploring what is ours to do together in Northeast Tennessee. The Riders and our Social Justice Committee are going to gather on the deck after service for coffee and conversation. We welcome any and all of you to join us. Forward together, not one step back.
Thank you, Bob. We will now hear from Sarah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going off script for just a second, don't panic. In my pursuit of always being head of the class, I finished my speech before Friday. So what happened in what was released Friday is not explicitly stated in what I'm talking about today, but know that it is intimately woven in the core of my message. So, my name is Sarah White, and I am the Director of Religious Education here at HVUUC. And for those of you that don't know me, I want to start with a few important personality traits of mine. I am an introvert. I really, really like having routine. If I'm not in bed by 8 o'clock at night, I get anxious and cranky. Really sensitive to noise, and I don't like crowds. People on a one-to-one basis I enjoy very much, but crowds is not my thing. So when I read this list out loud, I kind of wonder how anyone can tolerate me, let alone think I'm fun. But despite all of these characteristics of mine, when I was approached about the Poor People's Campaign opportunity, I enthusiastically said yes, please, to riding the bus overnight with 40 people to a rally in DC. I was willing to commit. So I want to tell you why this was so important to me. Not only am I the DRE here at the church, but I'm also a counselor at Robinson Middle School in Kingsport and a single mom to 2 teenagers. So I am eyes deep in today's youth. And I frequently find myself coming to their defense, defending their generation. So what I often hear are complaints that today's teenagers are self-absorbed, obsessed with technology, and lazy, and I challenge those stereotypes. So are they self-absorbed? Sure, some are. But what I see are youth who ask when they meet their peers, "What pronouns do you use?" I see youth who do not tolerate racism and aren't afraid to challenge the adults in their lives on that. I see youth who don't recognize gender as a strict binary. I see youth who have grown up in a culture that isn't afraid to talk about trauma and isn't afraid to seek out therapy services. Are they obsessed with technology? Yes, and so are the rest of us adults. These youth were raised on tablets and phones, literally at their fingertips since birth. We gave them technology as a distraction. We give them technology to complete their schoolwork. They were forced to use technology for over 2 years straight and counting, navigating school, appointments, and connection during a global pandemic. Yeah, our youth are dependent on technology, and yet I see teenagers learning things about social justice they wouldn't otherwise be aware of. Teens have followed the war in Ukraine over TikTok. Teens in rural Appalachia have been learning about gender fluidity and comprehensive sex ed through content creators. I've held the hands of teenagers as they wept, telling me that they stayed up on the phone all night with their suicidal friend so that they wouldn't feel alone. The fact that youth are globally connected has literally saved lives and educated them and assured them they're not alone. And lazy? I challenge everyone who complains to me that our teenagers are lazy to tell me what framework they're using to judge laziness, because we exist in a toxic and broken capitalist system that nearly collapsed during this pandemic. Our teenagers are trying to survive in a landscape of poverty, with a lack of health care and underfunded school systems with multiple mental health crises. And in a country where sometimes being a student is deadlier than being a police officer. So this doesn't even take into account teens that do extracurricular work or activities after school, that have to raise their siblings, or are responsible for the cooking and cleaning because their adult works multiple jobs. So I'm a big defender of our youth. They give me hope, and they're so resilient. I was so proud of the 3 teens from our church that went to DC, Jade, Eli, and Erin. I look at the children and youth in our congregation and think about how they are the leaders that we pray for. And it's our job to foster them and equip them to find their passion for activism. Going to DC with our Bristol bus was living our UU values out loud. Being there with our youth, listening to Bishop William Barber II standing in front of the Capitol building and demanding a resurrection in our country was a holy moment for me. A question I get asked a lot as a UU, and I imagine you all do too, is if I believe in God. And shockingly, as a UU, that's not a simple answer. But I can tell you that when I was standing there with my fellow UUs at the rally, demanding livable wages and affordable health care, that is where I find that miracles happen. That is where I feel the divine, and that is the good stuff. I asked each youth what their takeaway from the rally was, and this is what they allowed me to share. From Eli, it was really peaceful, and it was nice that everyone agreed on the issues. And from Erin, I really liked listening to the speakers. And from Jade, I really liked the dancers that performed. So precious. And so I want to invite you all to join me in fostering our future UUs. Our youth is going to be working on a social justice curriculum in RE this year, and I would like to invite you all to come volunteer as a teacher and be inspired by today's teens as I am every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll now hear from John. No, we'll now hear from Emily. And John. Tandem.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Emily. I'm John. So going last week, it's kind of crazy, it was just last week. One of the things that stood out to me the most was lift from the bottom and everybody rises. And this message is one, being here just a little over a year, going or attending online and then coming here in person, it reminded me of what I've heard and learned so far, that all of who you are is welcome and all of who you are is sacred, this unity. In my day job, I'm a professional counselor, and so is John. And I work with the addiction community, specifically opiates. And this wasn't something that I heard a lot at the march, and so I just wanted to make sure that this was part of the conversation. And in the last year, the overdose deaths have nearly doubled to 106,000, and 75% of that being fentanyl. And many of these folks are affected by poverty and trauma, abuse, many things like that. And so they are also part of the 140 million poor people. And treatment is costly, and it saves lives. Specifically, medication-assisted treatment is what I work in. And so I just wanted to make sure they were included. I'm in a place in my life that I'm wanting to see and affect change, and so this group has been just amazing. It's just come in line with where I'm at. And I want to see all celebrated, all welcomed, and all held as sacred. In my learning and research and journey that I've been going through with Ibram Kendi, as we heard from Tiffany earlier this month, or recently, she talked about, and Ibram talks about, how to be an anti-racist, and that is through policy change, anti-racist policy change. And so the Poor People's Campaign is committed to that policy change. And so lift from the bottom and everybody rises. Let's get out the vote. Thanks.
I'm the one with the preaching degree, and she wrote things down. I didn't write anything down. And so I wanted to just thank this community for providing the bus, and for you two for organizing it. It was very awesome. I was kind of mixed feelings about going up and spending a whole day in DC, and so I was kind of just coming at it like, okay, well, how's this going to go? But anyone who knows Dr. King knows that he had very anti-capitalist statements to say, and to participate in something that was his legacy was very exciting to me, because he started this in 1968 and obviously kind of fell to the wayside at some point. And Bernice was there. We've heard Bernice speak before, and it was great that his daughter was there to be a part of this. And so it's a struggle for me, and I'm sure I'm not alone, to feel like voting in a bourgeoisie democracy counts. And so I was coming to this march feeling like, it doesn't matter how much we vote, especially in a state where we live right now, to make any difference at all. But being there kind of revived my spirit a little bit, and we definitely want to get out and try to help people get registered to vote, and to focus on low-income people who aren't voting and getting them to the polls. And so that was really nice, because I am personally tied to poverty, and professionally I work with foster children. And so I see poverty and the trauma that it causes just by itself every day. And then growing up as someone who was, impoverished myself, and sometimes the only food I had was what I got at school. And so it's personal and it's professional for me. And after our benefits and taxes, I'm not too far away from being a low-wage worker myself. So I was like, I want to show up for this, and I'm glad that you guys gave us the opportunity. And so thank you for everybody who provided the opportunity. So.
Thank you, John and Emily. We will now hear from Tristan.
Hi, my name is Tristan. I've only been at this church for maybe about 2 months, and it's been an amazing experience. I did not prepare anything today because I kind of decided last minute I wanted to talk about something that really stood out to me at the rally. Something that is often overlooked in activism is how these things affect people with disabilities. I am a disabled adult. It may not look like it, but I certainly am, and it's a struggle, especially when it comes to disability and poverty. When you have a disability, it can be extremely difficult to work, if you're even able to get a job. And if you can't get a job and you live on SSI, the most amount of money you're allowed to save up at a time is only $2,000. A penny more, you lose your benefits. And the benefits they give you, you're living below minimum wage, and you still have to pay for housing, you still have to pay your rent and your bills, and it's really difficult, and a lot of disabled people end up homeless. And at this rally, I've heard several speakers speaking about how disability affected them and their lives. And it was really great to see it be included for once. It's often overlooked because it's a topic most people don't like to speak about. It kind of gives them the icks. But disability is not a bad word, and it's okay to talk about it, and it's important that we do talk about it and how it affects us. Trying to get my thoughts together, because as I said, I did not prepare anything. I'm very last-minuted on this. I have a friend who comes to this church. She couldn't come today. She was not feeling well, and she wanted to go to the rally, but she couldn't go because she wasn't feeling well. A lot of these rallies and marches often aren't accessible to disabled people, but this was the most accessible protest I have ever been at. The screens they had a sign language interpreter. It had subtitles in English and Spanish, and they made sure there were seats in the front that they specified were for people with disabilities. It was amazing to be a part of that kind of thing, because a lot of times my friend can't go to marches. We were part of one of the Black Lives Matter marches when she was using her wheelchair, and it ran into a ditch, and we had to have somebody else help pull her out. It wasn't a very accessible march, and not much we can do about that, but the Poor People's Campaign really made an effort to involve disabled folks and make sure they were a part of this conversation, because poverty affects us too on a much larger level, because beyond just having to pay for your daily living, we also have to pay for our medications, our treatments, our surgeries, our doctor's appointments, and all of that really racks up over time, especially if you don't have insurance or your insurance just sucks like mine. But I just wanted to bring that to the table because it's not something that's discussed often, and it's important that it is.
Thank you, Tristan. We will now hear finally from Noelle.
Hello, everyone. I want to reclaim America. I am a member of the League of Women Voters. I'm actually the treasurer. And one thing that we did on the way back is people want to know what actions can we take. I hope you look inside your bulletin today. You'll see a yellow sheet. It not only has copies of basically the signs that are up here, it also has action steps. So one action step I want to make you aware of is that July 5th is the voter registration deadline for the August state and federal primary and state and county general election. Folks, we have to change things from the bottom up. And you know what is important is that we need our voices heard, and right now there seems to be a move in this country to criminalize the poor. You know, to be sleeping in state property can be a felony as of July 1st in the state. What happens when you have a felony? Your voting rights are taken away. Now, this state has one of the lowest turnouts for voters. It also is one of the most difficult states to get your voting rights back. So I'm going to make it short and sweet here so Bradley doesn't sweat that I'm going to talk too long. And let me just read you the mission statement of the League of Women Voters. Is a nonpartisan political organization, encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. So in the break room, when you're in there having your snacks, I have posted on the wall there information about these deadlines that are coming up. There's many. And also I want to make one thing is that Bob and I are both poll workers. And one thing that I found out when we worked the last election was that there are people who hadn't voted in a long time. Well, in this state, if you don't vote in a certain number of elections, you can't vote. So I urge you, take the information that I posted there. There's an app that you can download. Check your voting status, and make sure that you are registered to vote. and help others get out there. You can take a picture of the information that I put there, then you could put it on your Facebook page, your TikTok, your Instagrams, all your social media. But folks, if we're going to lift from the bottom, we all can do that by starting to vote. So thank you very much for giving me this time to wave our flag and love our country.
Thank you, Noel, for mentioning that. I have friends, people in my life, and I'm sure you all do too, where they say, I don't vote because it doesn't matter. Things have been bad for so long, voting doesn't change anything. Those types of opinions are what's going to kill democracy, right? So please, in the darkest of times, the only thing you have is hope, and that's something you give yourself. That's the meaning of inner strength, and you have the ability to change things. So thank you for mentioning that, Noel. We're going to extinguish the chalice now. We extinguish this chalice, this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world. We're going to hold it long enough to where we don't have a fire hazard. Yeah. So while Beth's standing up here to make our lives easier, we thank you for being with us today. Thank you for observing our fragrance-free area on this side of this sanctuary. One of the great things about being a Unitarian Universalist is that we all engage in the free and responsible search for truth and meaning together. On the Sunday closest to the 4th of July, next week, we celebrate this collective search with our Soapbox Sunday service. I will also be leading that one. I'm sorry you're going to get me twice. Instead of having one preacher, our friends and members sign up to have a few minutes behind the pulpit to get on their metaphorical soapbox to tell us about something that they are passionate about. If being video recorded is a concern, we can accommodate for that, so don't worry about that. There may be space. I think there is still space. So if you have something to say, please check in with Reverend Tiffany at minister at HVUUC within the next day. There are 2 meal trains set up to lift up our friends in need. One is for Gary M., who is awaiting hip replacement surgery, for whom standing for long periods in the kitchen is painful, and one for Brian Kleski, who just returned home from the hospital following open heart surgery. You can find links to on our webpage under news and events, or talk to Joy. Joy, where are you? Joy is over there. Talk to her. This month's Caring Team representative. You can learn more about the many opportunities for fellowship, justice work, and working together by visiting our website, hvuuc.org, and checking out our news and events section. Also, because of what happened Friday, Bob and Noel will be hosting a Zoom talk where if you want to get involved to try and see what we can do in our community to try and change what happened Friday, go ahead and go on the Facebook page, and you can go, there's a Zoom link there for this Sunday, today at 5 o'clock. Or if you don't have a Facebook or you don't deal with Facebook, talk to Bob and Noel, and they can hook you up with the link so you can attend today at 5 o'clock to give your own opinion, if you want to help, stuff like that. Your benediction before we have coffee. My friends, there is a power at work in the universe. It works through human hands, but it was not made by human hands. It is a creative, sustaining, and transforming power, and we can trust that power with our lives. It will sustain us whenever we take a stand on the side of love, whenever we take a stand for peace and justice, whenever we take a risk. Trust in that power. We are together held by that power. And once again, I want to say, as a teacher, I know that doing a field trip takes a lot of prep work. There's money and other people and food and planning, and it's a mess, and I hate it. I love it, but I hate it. And so I want everyone to please thank Bob and Noel for choosing to do that for us. Karis is about to come back up here to lead us in our closing hymn, and this is also when we will pass the offering plate. The contributions you make during the offering supports the ways we care for each other within this community, and also gives us the resources we need to stretch out beyond these walls to make a positive impact in our community and in our world. If you're making a pledge payment, please mark it as such, and thank you so much for your contributions.
So we've been singing this all month, but if this is your first Sunday singing it with us, there's 3 verses: This Little Light of Mine, Everywhere I Go, and the third, Building Up a World. Please rise in body and or spirit at your comfort and pleasure. And here we go. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. That's right. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world.